Welcome to this module on right against exploitation, which is mentioned in Article 23 and 24 of the Indian Constitution. In this, we are going to learn about what is begar or the forced labor. In our country, there are millions of people who are underprivileged and deprived. Annually, 21 million people are in forced labor globally. They may be subjected to some kind of exploitation by their fellow beings. So one such form of exploitation in our country has been begar or forced labor, which means you make them to work without giving any kind of payments. So what is begar or forced labor? It is a kind of exploitation by the fellow human beings, and in our country, specifically in India, we have begar or forced labor, where you force them to work for you without giving them any kind of payments. So another closely related form of exploitation is exploitation related to buying and selling of human beings as slaves. This is also called as human trafficking in the modern terms, whereas in the olden days we call them as slaves. So both these are prohibited under the Constitution. So according to Article 23 and 24, any kind of exploitation, any kind of selling or buying of humans, both these acts are prohibited under the Constitution according to Article 23 and 24. So forced labor was imposed by landlords, moneylenders and other wealthy persons in the past who used to practice the forced labor. People like landlords, moneylenders and the wealthy persons used to force the people to work for them with very little wage or no wage, and also buy or sell humans as slaves. Both these acts are being prohibited under the Article 23 and 24 of the Indian Constitution. We'll look at the other bonded labors that are still in practice in our country in other forms. So it is still practiced in the brick kiln works, as you can see here, the child working in the brick kilns. It has been now declared as a crime, and it is a punishable offense to make children work in the brick kilns. So Constitution, it has now been declared as a crime and it is a punishable offense. So Constitution clearly declares that employment of children under the age of 14 years in dangerous jobs like factories and mines is declared as illegal. With the child labor being made as illegal and right to education becoming a fundamental right for children, this right against exploitation has become a more meaningful one. So in the right to exploitation, now the Constitution prohibits whoever is working under the age of 14 years is considered as illegal work. They cannot be employed in any kind of factories or mines. Now, once the child labor is declared as illegal, and also right to education has been declared as a fundamental right, so it becomes a meaningful act for the children. So under this section, the Constitution forbids employment of children below the age of 14 years in any kind of dangerous jobs like factories or mines, and it also declares that right to education as a fundamental right to stop the children against exploitation. So now the right to against exploitation has become more meaningful act. Right to the freedom of religion. We are going to discuss about the constitutional provisions which has guaranteed everyone to enjoy and follow the religion of his or her choice. This freedom is considered as a hallmark of democracy. Now, this is mentioned very clearly in the articles from 25 to 28. Why it is considered as a hallmark of democracy? Because if you see history, there were rulers and emperors in different parts of the world who did not allow the residents of their countries to enjoy the right to freedom of religion. We have rulers who forced the members of the nation, the citizens or empire, to practice the religion what the ruler is practicing, what is declared as official, and everybody has to follow the same religion. In history, we have such kind of rulers who forced people to convert their religion, and if you don't follow that, a person who is not following the religion what the king or the emperor is practicing and he is following a different religion, then the ruler were either persecuting the person or forcing them to convert to the official religion of the rulers. These kind of practices were prevalent during the medieval period and in some parts in the modern period also. Even in the present day, there is no freedom of religion in few countries. But when it comes to democracy, the democracy has always incorporated the freedom to follow the religion of one's choice as one of its basic principles. So, in democracy, it is very clearly mentioned about the freedom of religion. You can practice any religion of your choice. Nobody can force you to convert your religion to another religion. How it happened in history will not happen in a democratic setup. That is the reason why it is mentioned very clearly in the Constitution itself. It is a constitutional right that you can practice any religion of your choice, and it is a fundamental right that nobody can object your right, nobody can violate this right. So right to freedom of religion is one of the key ideas that is being implemented in democratic societies. Example in India. Freedom of faith means that the freedom of religion is not an unlimited right. There can be certain limitations. What are those limitations? The government can interfere in religious matters for rooting out certain social evils. Whenever the government identifies any kind of social evils which are practiced or any inhuman practices which are practiced in any particular name of the religion, then government can interfere in the religious matters for rooting out certain social evils. For example, in the past, the government has taken steps banning practices like sati, bigamy, polygamy, or human sacrifice. But many of us feel that such restrictions cannot be opposed in the name of interference in the right to freedom of religion. The government can put restrictions basing on the problems or the practices what we are doing are human sacrifices or sati system. Now such restrictions cannot be opposed saying that you are interfering in the right to freedom of religion. The limitations on the right to freedom of religion always produce a certain amount of friction and tension between the followers of various religions and the government. Government will not interfere unnecessarily into the religious affairs, even in the past or in the present. Government will interfere only if it finds there are some inhuman practices which are being practiced on the name of religion. So there are severe comments made on this, that sometimes the government can interfere in religious matters for rooting out certain social evils. Only if the government finds anything is wrong, then only government will interfere. Otherwise, very rarely we have seen the government interfering into the religious matters. But there are few followers who feel that government is trying to take control over the religious affairs. When the government seeks to restrict some of the activities of any religious group, people of that religion feel that this is the interference in their religion. When government try to control some of the activities which are harmful for the group as well as for the society, then the group of people feel that this is an interference in their religion. Now, the freedom of religion becomes a matter of political controversy for yet another reason. The freedom of religion is now turning into a political controversy for another reason. That is, the Constitution has guaranteed the right to propagate one's religion. The Constitution has clearly guaranteed the right to propagate one's own religion. Once you practice any religion and you feel that it is good and you want to preach it, you have all the rights to practice that religion and propagate that religion. Now, this includes persuading people to convert from one religion to another. As I mentioned, the freedom of religion is becoming a matter of political controversy for yet another reason. That is, when the Constitution has guaranteed to propagate one's religion, spread your religion because you liked it. Now, it also includes that you are forcing people to convert from one religion to another. You are trying to convince people to convert from one religion to another. Now, some people resent conversions on the grounds that these are based on intimidation or inducement. So we have reports that recently people are forced to go into the conversion either by intimidation or inducement. The Constitution does not allow forcible conversions. It only gives us the right to spread information about our religion and thus attracts others to it. So you cannot force any individual or any person to change his or her religion. You can only preach them that about your religion so that they get attracted towards your religion. Being a country which is a home for several religions, it is necessary that government must extend equal treatment to different religions, which means in India we have many religious followers staying together. India is a land of many religions. Negatively, it means that the government will not favor any particular religion at all. They don't favor any particular religion. They treat all the religions equally. In India, we don't have any official religion. We don't have to belong to any particular religion in order to be a prime minister, a president, or a judge, or any other public official. In India, it is very clear no religion is an official religion. We have also seen that under the right to equality, there is a guarantee that the government will not discriminate any individual on the basis of religion in giving employment opportunities. So the institutions run by the state will not preach any particular religion or give any religious education, nor will they favor a person of any religion. The objective of these provisions is to sustain and nurture the principle of secularism. Now, we learn here in India, as it is the land for many religions, many religious followers stay in our country, and this is the land where the religions like Jainism and Buddhism are born. India does not have any official religion. So, India treats all religions equally. In some countries, we have a rule that a person belonging to a particular religion or the official religion, only those people can contest to any political position. But in India, we don't have any preference for any religion. You can be the president or the prime minister or a judge in India if you belong to any religion. There is no preferential treatment given for any religious person. 29 and 30 of the Indian Constitution, which explains about the cultural and the educational rights. India is not made up of a monolithic society. India is made up of a heterogeneous group. So we are a society which has a vast diversity. Our constitution believes that diversity is our strength. Therefore, one of the fundamental rights that is being guaranteed by the Indian Constitution is the right of the minorities to maintain their culture. This minority status is not dependent on any religion. The linguistic and cultural minorities are also included in this provision. As you can see here, the Indian Constitution is not made up of a monolithic society. We are a society that has vast diversity in our country. Our Constitution believes that this diversity is our strength. Our strength, diversity is our strength. Unity in diversity is the principle what we all believe. So, our fundamental right has also guaranteed right to minorities to maintain their culture. Now, when we talk about the minorities, we are not talking only with the religious point of view. This minority status is not dependent only upon the religion. It is also considered with the linguistic and cultural minorities. They were also added in this provision. As you can see here, the minorities are the group that has a common language or a religion, and in particular part of the country or in the country as a whole. They are outnumbered by some other social section who are considered as minority. Minorities are a group that has a common language or a culture or a religion in a particular part of the country or on the whole of the country that are outnumbered for some other social section. Then we consider them as minorities. Such communities who have a culture, who have a language and a script of their own, which they practice, they have a right to conserve and develop that culture, language, and the script of writing of their own. So, our constitution gives protection for such minorities. So, all the minorities, let it be religious, let it be linguistic, can set up their own educational institutions. By doing so, they can preserve and develop their own culture and identity. The government will not, while granting an aid to the educational institutions, discriminate against any educational institution on the basis that it is under the management of a minority community. So, it is very clear that in this article, the Constitution of India guarantees the protection of the minorities. It is protection of the minorities not only on religious base. It is also protecting the minorities of linguistic. So the group which is small in number but has a common language or a religion or a culture, a script of their own, they have a right to conserve and develop. The Constitution gives that right. Either the religious minority or the linguistic minority can set up their own educational institution, and that will be funded by the government. This is a measure taken to preserve and develop their own culture and identity. That is cultural and educational rights. To constitutional remedies. What are the right to constitutional remedies? They are mentioned in the Articles 32, 35 of the Indian Constitution. So where do we find the right to constitutional remedies in our Indian Constitution? They are mentioned in the articles from 32 to 35 of the Indian Constitution. Our Constitution contains a very impressive list of fundamental rights. As we discussed in the previous module, Indian Constitution contains a set of very impressive list of fundamental rights. But just writing down the list of rights is not enough. Why? Only if you give the rights, their implementation is not guaranteed. So, there has been a way through which they could be realized in practice and defended against any attack on these rights. Just not merely writing down the rights, they also guaranteed a realized practice, and they defended. The rights are defended against any form of attack. That is right to constitutional remedies. Let us see them here. The right to constitutional remedies means through which it is being achieved in case if your fundamental rights are violated. From the articles given from 30 to 35, there are provisions through which you can achieve your fundamental rights through a constitutional way, that is constitutional remedy. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, as you can see the picture here, considered the right to constitutional remedies as the heart and soul of the Constitution. He described the right to constitutional remedies as the heart and soul of the Indian Constitution. It is also been said because these rights given to citizens, the right to approach High Court or Supreme Court to get any fundamental rights restored in case of their violation. So, what are constitutional remedies? Why are they important? What did Dr. B.R. Ambedkar feel about the right to constitutional remedies? We are looking at in this video. So as we can see here, our constitution has a list of fundamental rights which are very impressive. But just writing down the list of rights is not sufficient to achieve them. So, in order to achieve them in practice and to defend them against any kind of attacks on these rights, the right to constitutional remedies has been added to the Indian Constitution, which is mentioned in the Articles 32 to 35. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar considers that the right to constitutional remedies is the heart and the soul of the Indian Constitution. Why means it enables the citizens to approach to a High Court or a Supreme Court to get any of the fundamental rights. If they are violated, they can be restored through this right to constitutional remedies. The Supreme Court and the High Court can issue the orders and give directives to the governments for the enforcement of rights according to right to constitutional remedy. In case any individual finds his rights being violated, especially the fundamental rights, then he can approach the Supreme Court or High Court and make the courts to issue orders to the governments for the enforcement of his or her rights according to right to constitutional remedy. In order to make the Supreme Court or the High Court to issue them, they issue writs to the government to safeguard the fundamental rights of the citizens. The courts, in order to safeguard the rights, they issue various special orders known as writs. What are writs? Writs are the special orders given by the court like Supreme Court or High Court if they find any of the fundamental rights of the individual are being violated, and if the citizen approaches the court, then they pass orders to the government giving directives for the enforcement of their rights. Such orders which are given on these instances are known as writs. In that, the first one is habeas corpus, second one mandamus, third one prohibition, fourth one quo warranto, and the last one certiorari. There are 5 writs which are issued by the Supreme Court or High Court to protect the fundamental rights of the citizens. As you can see here, first one habeas corpus, second one mandamus, third one prohibition, fourth one quo warranto, and last one certiorari. These are the writs which are issued by the Supreme Court or High Court to protect the rights of the individual. Now the Supreme Court or High Court can issue the orders or writs like habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, quo warranto, and certiorari through the right to constitutional remedies which are mentioned in Articles 32 to 35 of the Indian Constitution. So in this module, we learned about the right to constitutional remedy. As the name it is suggesting, we will have remedies by the Constitution if there is a violation to your fundamental
called these rights, especially the right to constitutional remedies, as the heart and soul of our, because it guarantees protection against the fundamental rights. Now, in case your rights are violated, citizens can approach the Supreme Court or High Court of the respective state and make an appeal for issuing of orders for reinforcement of their rights. The orders issued by the Supreme Court or High Court in the eve of reinforcement of fundamental rights are known as writs. And we have 5 types of writs which are issued to this occasion. We are first